And that's okay, something pop up. Okay, so that's some teachers would hesitate to do peer edit in class, and which is understandable. So a feedback as a conversation is a word I'm trying to focus on, and that's which is important. I think feedback session is not like peer editing session, mainly focus on the grammar check, like have you have a perfect grammar or anything. And that it's probably conversation. A conversation requires two people talking about one idea. So Franklin proposed the importance of conducting a peer editing session, which she calls a conference, not a session, because a session should provide students with a place where they can work together to improve their papers by discussing them. So the important part here I want to focus is to discuss, not just giving the suggestion one way, but having a conversation together. So here's a discussion question to people here and be participants that should social skill development be an integral part of the goals of a peer response session? And basically, my question is here that, okay, so we are working on the feedback is mainly to improve paper, language learning, but also learning not only about language, but social skills as well, how to communicate, how to have conversation to, that's probably I'm trying to focus on is language learning and improving social skills. So I am just kind of throwing a question here. Is social skill development be integral part as much as like language learning when we are conducting peer response session? So how many people here? So I think it's, oh, how many people are here? Okay. So I have a question. If you are free to jump in a conversation, but I will start so you have maybe easier time to join me if you like. Eight people. Okay, 8 people. Oh, that's wonderful. So maybe I can make a breakout room first. And then after I talked about my situation first. Okay, so communication skills is what I want to try to tell you that since pandemic hit us, the situation got worse about peer editing session. And I'm not tech savvy, but I had to learn everything, including Zoom and other platforms. So having an interaction, personal interaction was very, very difficult. So, and then how do we did that? And then the students don't want to talk. And then some students, depends on the major too. Oh, sort of business major, I'm teaching business and economics and psychology or law students. And economics and business majors, they are very energetic. I don't have any problem, just don't have to force them, okay, make sure you converse about, you talk about your paper. But engineering students are the very difficult ones to motivate them to talk because they're, by nature, they're quiet. So I have to use every possible way them to talk. But and it is good that one day I was talking to one of my engineering students, and he did say, well, it was nice to talk to someone other than just staring at the screen, because I wasn't sure if I was doing right for my assignment. And then I was able to talk to my classmates about it, so it made me feel more comfortable. So like he was actually able to converse with someone about his assignment. So he said, I'm not really good at talking. I don't like to talk to people. And I said, I understand. But it was nice to know if I'm doing the right thing for my assignment. So it's my question is, what do you think about the question that social skills development be it's important part of the goals for the peer response session. So can I, is this possible to make group, like breakout room?
Yes, you can. Down under more with the dot, 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 you can break out rooms.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I see. I'm doing timing, so oh, well, I'm using more. Okay, dot here, breakout room. Okay. Oh yes. Okay. Okay, great. So I am going to visit them. Oh, okay. Hi. Okay, and it's okay to join their room, right? And come back to the main room. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Naoko. Are you talking? Because you're on mute right now.
I always forget. I always forget. I do
I
that.
always do that.
So, like, thank you so much for discussing that question. And then Christopher's opinion, what he shared was very interesting because the school policy absolutely no L1. However, it is some complicated issues such as like words, maybe some Korean words like a little tiny bit. But for the written communication, L1 is used. So I think that's really good thing about a good point about how to use an L1 there and an L2. And then for Catherine said, like, it's important point that how it is important to build a confidence and be respectful. The students need to be comfortable in a situation where they're in a vulnerable situation that they have to share their own papers. So it is a confidence that they must have. And she's teaching middle school students. So at their age and then their cultural issue that they're more uncomfortable about sharing their opinions, and then thus it's important to build a confidence. And the same thing for my students too, that some students told me, oh, my classmates paper is so much better and I feel like I don't want to, I feel so uncomfortable. I said, oh, no, you're talking about your ideas here, so you do not want to focus on grammars and the words that they use, and basically your ideas is more important. So I think it's a great reminder that what we have to focus on is to build a confidence. That's a really good point. And then Natasha Sensei was saying that how she's pretty much doing the maybe similar to what I'm doing, sometimes mixture in L1 and L2. And she's teaching research paper. And when you're teaching research paper for the third year, it's not likely happening to just teach in L2 unless they were returnee. So that was interesting point. Thank you so much. So I need to share. So here is what I try to talk about further. And students communicating in Japanese, since students are expected to use English as much as they can, as it is one of the valuable opportunities they can practice speaking English, and many students prefer conversing English over Japanese. Students tend to feel they cannot express their thoughts appropriately. And that was the main thing that I have encountered, to have them to communicate in Japanese because they were quiet. And one of the students did tell me what I wanted to say with Japanese when I wrote in English was like this sentence, this short sentence in English. But what I wanted to say was like a lot of information. So that's what he noticed about communicating in Japanese sometimes might be better option for him. So here's another discussion question here. At what point in a learner's development is this communication better done in L1 or L2? So I'm talking about it's like a first draft or a second draft, or maybe that's something you can talk about, learner's development in this communication. So for example, first draft, and I actually did both. At first, I have the question saying, okay, what is the main idea? What are the examples? What did you like about it? It's like 3 questions for the first draft, because first draft is still they're trying to focus on idea. So they need to discuss like what they want to talk about. So I thought that would be better to have like not bullet points, nuts and bolts, what they have to focus on, main idea, which is thesis statement, examples, and then the impression on the paper supposed to be prominent already. So by developing more ideas, maybe some students are trying to decide what their thesis statement. So I thought after that they answered in English. And I said, go ahead, talk about your ideas. If you're wondering about your ideas, if you haven't decided to focus on one thesis statement you need to focus on. By the way, I'm talking about this personal paper. It's like an introduction, like a self-introduction paper that they have to talk about who they are. So I told them in the beginning that they need to pick an adjective to describe who they are. So if the main topic, thesis statement has two ideas, three ideas, it will be a little bit confusing. So, and that's why for the question, I want them to focus on the one adjective. So that's why my first peer editing question was, what is the adjective? Like what kind of person your peer is. So I did that and in English because it's easy to spot. But after that, if you're wondering, you might be wondering because they cannot just determine or identify their personality. Say, I'm cheerful. That's it. There may be two, three characteristics as a personality they have. So they're still trying to decide between the two. So they need to discuss that, I thought. And that's why in the beginning, I said three questions. And after that, they can talk that in Japanese. So I did that. So I did both for my first assignment. I did L1, L2 for both of them. But I'm wondering, should I be doing just L1 for the first draft and maybe a second draft peer editing, maybe just do L2? So what's your thoughts on that? And then we don't have many people, so we can actually talk maybe in main room. I think that might be better. Okay. Any thoughts on that? And you can write chat as well.
So when I work on writing with my students in peer editing, I actually stick to L2 in the beginning stages when they're lower level. And like you were saying, like having checklists of what they should be looking for, how they should be editing. And then I've noticed that when I move on to more advanced editing, where it's peer review and free advice or peer, that sort of thing. And when their level is higher, I don't mind as much moving into L1 editing because it seems like they can better express their writing advice in their L1 once their levels are higher. But I don't know. I feel like that has worked best for me. What does everybody else think?
You can unmute. Can they unmute? Oh, okay. Thank you. Christopher.
Just kind of following up. I mean, I use checklists. I've had the most success basically by going with checklists. I'm working with high school students. And in all honesty, I mean, my experience, I'm teaching, the standard 5-paragraph essay. So kind of basic, but it's at the same time, there are complexities to it. And my feeling with students is they can do peer editing with a little bit of training. And yeah, I mean, a checklist, because, and I've been teaching the same class for better or worse for about 7 years now. And good writing is not so much about what you tell the students to do. It's just as much about things they should avoid doing. And students don't fully have that awareness of the stuff they really shouldn't be doing. I mean, like they'll write metaphors and like, I feel like a bucket. And then it doesn't fully make sense. And I say, no, you've got to explain this. So you cue them into that, but I feel like it's tough maybe in a later stage, like round 3 or something where they've got some experience. Then they might be able to provide more critical, independently kind of autonomous responses. But I think definitely in the early stages, it's kind of checklist stuff that I produce. And so like both the things they shouldn't be doing and the things they should be doing, it's right in front of them and they can sort of respond and evaluate on very, very clear, specific guidelines. And that's been what's been the most productive for me when I've done peer feedback. And I do peer feedback like every cycle I'm teaching. So it's useful, but it definitely needs to be scaffolded heavily for students, in my opinion.
Thank you. Anybody? Yeah, I think it's really important to have the checklist in the beginning too, like what not to do, as Christopher said. And then it is like, I think it's more efficient way of doing that, and the checklist type. And of course, the questions I have for the peer editing, it is basically the checklist will actually focus on what you need to do. And then Chris will say what not to do, what you should avoid doing it. But yeah, having a clear and checklist of what they have to do, it's really vital to have a productive peer editing. And anybody else, would you like to know? Okay. All right, thank you so much. Okay. Okay, so, oh shoot. Okay, so here, even if they have opportunity to take an advantage to share their ideas in their first language due to their limited interpersonal experience, there are still some students who tend to be hesitant to communicate with each other. So the communication can be harder for the students, even if they are in a situation they can still converse. As I said, because of a pandemic. So one day, this is what I did, and I encouraged them to talk about their papers at the end of the peer editing session in Japanese, mainly clarifying some questions and issues that may have about their papers. So yes, I do focus on a peer editing session in the beginning as L2. In English, they need to discuss that. Because mainly this is English class and some students want that too. But I think to be sure and to make sure there's no misunderstanding in communication, and if the peers were able to provide the message or suggestions the way they meant to be, they meant. So that's why I just clarifying some questions and maybe issues. So that actually the students were quiet until then, but then when they hear the word, oh, Japanese, we can talk. So they were happier and they started to actually talk about their papers. And now I overheard some students, hey, question number 3, you said this, is it what you mean? And then sometimes students don't understand the comments, what the students wrote, because they're just pretty simple words and text they wrote and phrases. And it's not really detailed enough. And so those students who received the peer and feedback, they wanted to clarify something. And then the other end, on the other end, those students who provided the suggestions wanted to make sure they were not giving the wrong messages. So the clarifications on some comments they made, it's maybe useful to communicate in L1. That's what I feel like found out. So actually on the same day, I do this every time, almost every time for the writing classes. And I also teach literacy classes. This consists of reading and writing. So any type of writing they do and that they participate in peer editing session, I always ask the students to feel like, what did you think about peer editing? And so students said they reflected on the session they had. So the following responses demonstrate their attitudes about peer editing session in their language. So they're the ones who participate in a peer session. So I need to know what they really felt. And then this is basically what they said. There's 3 types of responses. First, they actually loved how they were able to communicate in Japanese because they were concerned. They usually concerned about that, and they use the word shinpai, means concerned. That if they were able to get their message across appropriately, there's no misunderstanding. So it's basically the reason I was doing the first L1 at the end is to clarify the comments that peers made. And some felt the peer session should be conducted in English all the time because it helped them improve their writing skills. So the students, surprisingly, not everybody, but there are several students said they wanted to do it in English. At the end, some felt more comfortable participating in both English and Japanese, which means like maybe the style I did. Okay, in the beginning, L2, I will explain peer editing sheet, what they need to looking for, and what they have to be careful when they're reading the peers' papers. At the end, after you're done your peer editing session, you can converse that in Japanese. I mean, I encourage them to converse that in Japanese. So there are like 3 types of responses I got. So this is just sample. I was going to upload it, but this is like sample of my peer editing sheet for, this is for the second draft. And this is this is the thesis statement and what kind of person is your peer. And this should be 1 adjective they should pick, they should come up with. So what did you learn about your peer? And this is questions, maybe simply, actually those 2 questions, the students say, well, can be done in English only. And then what are the examples that you describe who she is? Does the paper have an organization that easy to follow? If not, how can the writer improve his or her organization? So 3 and 4, the students said they want that in Japanese. Some students said that they wanted to speak in Japanese, at least to clarify what they said to their peers in the comments. So on 5, I know still they need to focus on the grammatical issues, but it's a glaring grammatical issues, and I usually focus on when I explain, this is the peer editing sheet questions that you need to focus on. It's just parents, maybe subject-verb agreement, and they can handle a few grammar issues, because I don't want them to focus on grammatical issues yet. So, but there are some glaring issues they should remember to focus on. So I think this is pretty much I want to talk about, and this is like a references, but I hope you, thank you for your contribution about like what do you think about L1, L2 comments and a feedback session. Thank you. Any questions?
What was the subject for those peer review questions? I'm assuming it's an essay, like a personal narrative, or?
Oh, it's called self-introduction. Yeah, it's a first paper I usually assign students to do, because introducing themselves is something maybe fun. And also this is kind of questions that they can talk about themselves and get to know each other. I always want to focus on like students can have more friends, get to know each other. So I thought the first paper would be good to talk about who they are, and then maybe get along with them. I don't know, make new friends, more have conversation. Mainly, I want them to have a friendly environment for the students to learn, especially the writing class. The writing class is 4th period that starts at 3:30 p.m. and 5:10 p.m. It's really hard for the students. So I want something to lively. I want something to talk about. It's okay to get noisy a little bit, as long as they know when to not when to listen. Yeah, if they know when to listen, be quiet. And then but it's tend to be now like this is like 4th week, they're more lively. And whenever they have to even write, they were revising their paper, the first paper right now. So I do have time in class for them to write. And the writing is such a a long task. You have to do it by yourself. But it's nice to have someone around, like, hey, does this sound okay to you? Is this clear to you? I think the conversation is really important too. So that's mainly done in Japanese too. If it's okay to talk to your neighbors if you have any questions, and if you have, I will just move around and then they can ask me, but also you can ask your peers. So they start doing that too. Yeah. The end. It's 47. Okay.
There is one more question. I think we have what time for one more question. Christopher put one in the chat. For an assignment, do students have multiple peer editing sessions? Do they have the same peer editing partner over multiple peer editing sessions?
Yes, they have the same partner. And then because it's like they have read already, and sometimes I change the partner because it's nice to have the fresh eye to read the papers again and have different opinions. But I asked the students, would you like to have a different partner? And then they were like, I want to stay with this partner first. So I just want to respect, and I don't want to kind of force them to have different partners. So if they get along, that's really good. But Christopher, yes, I think it is nice to have different partners for the second perioding session. If the whole class, like maybe towards the end of the quarter, a semester, I can have a different partner. But in the beginning, I usually have the same partner for the multiple perioding sessions. Yes.
All right, I hate to draw everything to a close, but as Naoko said, the time is up. So if everybody else has any more questions, Naoko Sensei, are you going to be in the Discord for questions, or is there any way people can contact you?
Oh, I will. Oh, shoot, I forgot to put my Gmail account. Gmail address. Should I leave the Gmail address to where can I leave that?
You can leave it in the Discord, I think.
Oh, okay. Oh, I forgot to do that. Okay.
Yeah, you have plenty of time, so I'll just end
Sure.
it here. And I hate to end the session because it's
Okay,
been
I
really
know. It's
productive
1
and
minute. Okay.
everything. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Bye.
Bye.